Greetings and welcome to the basic infrastructure of Timberborn, where I will go over some of the basic buildings and infrastructure in the early game and their numbers to give you a general idea of how many you need of each to support your current beaver population. These are just rough numbers that were also basically tested by other people playing the game and determined in that matter, so I don't think anyone's actually looked at the game code and seen the exact number that, beavers and stuff get yet. At least to my knowledge, I could be off on that. Anyway, let's get started. Let's start with the water pump here, which does as its namesake suggests and pumps water from rivers, streams, lakes, and what have you to supply your beavers with all the water they need to survive. Now, one water pump in one regular day will pump about 44 units of water, roughly speaking, and beavers will drink about 2 water per day. So one water pump can sustain about 22 beavers. Though personally, I think that once you reach 20 beavers, you should build another water pump. Just so that you always have more water coming in than you have going out, is my basic reasoning for that. And next, similar kind of water pumps in the terms of the water vein, is we have the small water tank. There's also a large water tank, which holds more. Small water tank has a capacity of 30 units of water, which is a decent amount when you consider that each cube of water here is 5 units of water. And the water inside these tanks will not evaporate. It will only be used by the beavers. Whereas the water in rivers will evaporate during droughts. The small water tank, though, is not the most efficient way to store water, and you really do not want to seriously use it to store lots of water. I use them primarily to give a convenient point for your beavers to fulfill their water need. If you want to store water, then you will definitely want to get the large water tank as soon as possible using science points, since it can store 10 times the amount of this small water tank and it only uses a 3x2 footprint. So it's not even that much bigger in terms of space it uses on the map, but can hold a substantially more water for storage. Now on to food. First, we do have the berries here, which are your starting off food item. Beavers eat roughly, but something like 2 to 2.5 units of food per day. While these bushes take about 12 days to regrow after they are picked, so even this amount is not going to sustain a beaver population for very long. Hence why you quickly go to farms, which the numbers wise in terms of how long they can sustain beavers or how much you need to sustain beavers is with carrots, you need roughly 80 tiles a farm in order to sustain 20 beavers. With the folktales specifically, I recommend building the farms in some kind of multiple of 7. Since the beehive the folktales get later on covers an area of 7x7 and it increases the growth of your crops, if you're doing some kind of multiple of 7, you can basically put the beehive in it in a manner where it covers everything efficiently and doesn't waste any of its space. Like this plot here, I could put the beehive right here and it would cover this all. But the beehive, you do have to invest in some more infrastructure in order to build it, since it uses paper, planks, and logs, so it's not something you can build immediately at the start of the game. Then for the folktales, you have lodges for their housing needs, as their basic sleeping infrastructure, which, as you can see, they can only house 3 beavers. But in order to produce more beavers, they can only have 2 beavers in a lodge. The third space needs to be empty for a child beaver. But the folktales won't exceed the population of their lodges, so it's easy to kind of keep their population where you want it to be, so long as you don't have any kind of issues with like food shortages or water shortages and such that would, kill off a lot of beavers at once, potentially. And while warehouses don't produce anything, I will explain one bug in their behavior currently that I've noticed, as well as why a lot of people right now are just using a single warehouse per food item, which isn't a bad idea for the smaller warehouses anyway, given the amount you need to store up of each item. But basically the mechanical bug that I've noticed is if I were to enable carrots in this warehouse and I put the carrots and the berries at 100 desired, the beavers wouldn't stop at 100, so you could end up with a lopsided amount of an item. Like you could end up with 150 berries or 50 carrots, and vice versa, or any kind of combination up to 200. Thus, it's better just to have, each warehouse dedicated to a single item, because then it guarantees that you're gonna have all that item there, and you don't end up with the potential thing of like it has 90% of something else and only 10% of an item that would be very useful to have in that warehouse in greater quantities for its location. Warehouses in general, as well as the log piles, it's more noticeable with them. If I built another log pile, then the beavers would remove half of the logs out of this log pile to put them in the other log pile to try to keep them balanced. So it's something to keep in mind whenever you're building log piles. Either way, that's the basic infrastructure for Timberborn in terms of just the early game survival and what you need food and water wise to sustain a certain amount of beavers, since the game does not really tell you what it needs. So unless you do testing like other people have to get the numbers, you have to really just play by ear and be like, oh, my food is going down, I need more food. My water is going down, I need more water. Versus if you know the numbers, like with the water production and all that stuff, you can better gauge how much you need of each to support your current beaver population, so you're not potentially wasting beavers by having too many on one job when you could potentially use some of those beavers for another job and still be bringing in more than enough water and food for your cities. Either way, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative, and would like to thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in another video down the road. Bye for now.